Hi friends, it's Jess with our Bipolar. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1 and I was diagnosed 26 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. Today, we are going to rate my psychiatrists. So I'm going to go through the entire history of my psychiatrists and tell you about them. But before we get into that, I will ask you to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Like this video if you like it, comment. I would love to hear about your psychiatrist. I think we can all learn something there. And you can also find me on social media. So if you'd like to connect with me, find me on Instagram and Facebook, and don't be shy, reach out. So today we're gonna go through all of the psychiatrists I have had over the past, 2.5 decades. So there have been 5 in total. Some have been much better than others. So in doing this, you'll learn what I consider to be, a good psychiatrist, a bad psychiatrist, and I'm also gonna give each one a letter grade. My first psychiatrist, I got through my first therapist. Now I'm gonna be honest, my dad is a therapist. He found me my first therapist, and he purposely chose someone who was not in our immediate area where he was working. If you're watching this, Dad, sorry, but that's the truth. That's what you told me. And, he did say that he regretted doing that and basically trying to hide that his daughter was having any issues. So I had that first therapist because I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and I don't think my dad was really that familiar with the psychiatrist in that practice, but he was familiar with the therapist. I, started on meds for depression. I was seeing that therapist, and then a year later, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1. And you can watch that whole story if you want to up here. It talks about my first manic episode with psychosis, and I'll put that in the description box as well. I'll tell you, I guess, the good and bad about that first psychiatrist. So what was good, she was a kind person. She was very available. That's kind of it. She put me on Depakote to try at first, and I also stayed on the antidepressant I was on, which I believe was Zoloft. I've tried a bunch of antidepressants, but unlike when she would try me on different antidepressants, once I got on the Depakote, she really kept me on it for a long time. So I think I was with her at least 5 years, and I continue to have really bad rapid cycling, and I go much more toward mania, so I had a lot of mania, some depression. She never changed my meds. I do believe she eventually took me off the Zoloft, the antidepressant, but she did not ever take me off the Depakote. She didn't try anything new. She only did med checks, 10, 15-minute checks. I feel if someone is really struggling, that personally, I don't think that's enough. I think you need to be spending more time with the patient to really get to know them and figure out what could work. Throughout that time, I had a ton of thoughts wanting to end my life. It was a really bad time, and I was still in college during part of it, and I did graduate, but it was a major, major struggle. I do not think she did me any favors. The first psychiatrist, I'm going to give an F. My second psychiatrist, I was only with very briefly. I think it was 1 or 2 appointments. I had moved after college to Charlotte, and I was still kind of under this first psychiatrist's care. And then I did see someone while I was down there. I don't know if I was forced to. Oh, and I will say that that first psychiatrist was covered under my insurance. So another positive was I didn't have to pay out of pocket. I was paying co-pays. It wasn't very expensive. But the second psychiatrist, I can't give her a really bad grade because she didn't have enough time with me. She did not change my meds. I mean, she didn't really do anything. Maybe I'll just give her a C. But she was covered under insurance again, which you'll see if that can be a good or bad thing as we keep talking. Okay, so my third psychiatrist was in Washington, D.C. I had moved to the D.C. area after Charlotte, and I was going to American University, and he lived within walking distance of the university. So that's primarily why I chose him, just that's the truth. And he was covered by insurance. He was a nice person. He was not very effective either. He did not take me off the Depakote. Seeing a trend here. I was trying new psychiatrists and they were not doing anything really, especially with the bipolar. So this psychiatrist, he was trying in other ways. So he put me on, I believe it was Neurontin for anxiety, and he prescribed me, Ambien for sleep, because I was not getting good sleep and I was going into mania all the time. So instead of changing my mood stabilizer or putting me on an antipsychotic, something like that, he added Ambien, which did not last long because I had an instance. I mean, it's not funny, but we have to laugh at these things sometimes. I went on a ski trip and I took Ambien when I thought I was going to bed, and then I think I just stayed up a little while longer, like talking with people on the trip. It wasn't anything much. And I started seeing things, and then I sort of black out, but I was awake, and I got very upset and was crying. And my boyfriend at the time called this psychiatrist, like, what is going on? He didn't know it was the Ambien. He didn't know what was happening. And he was, I do remember sort of in and out. And that psychiatrist said, it was because because I didn't go to sleep on the Ambien, and just put me to sleep and I should be okay. And so I was, but then I was taken off the Ambien. I think he added some other things, but none of them were bipolar meds. I finally kind of just stopped going because it wasn't, it was helping me a little with anxiety, but he wasn't helping me that much. And I think he also prescribed me Xanax. It's like I want to give him an F, but he did a little bit, so we'll give him a D. Okay, so then at this point, I'm totally fed up. This is how many years in? This is probably at about the 8-year mark since my diagnosis in 1999. I stopped seeing this psychiatrist. I don't have a psychiatrist whatsoever. I stopped taking meds, and I don't recommend going off meds at all. I recommend working with your psychiatrist or finding a new one and then, working on the meds. But I felt like I had been doing that and it wasn't helping. So I went off the meds and I did do better for a while. So I talk about this in another video where I talk about the history of my meds. I'll link it right here real quick and down in the description box. For about a year, almost a year, I actually am stable, or pretty stable. I mean, no major mania or depression until that year is about up and I go into a really big mania, the biggest one since right before I got diagnosed with bipolar. So it's full-blown mania, psychosis. I have a video about that too. It's called my last full-blown manic episode. I'll link. And yeah, it happened at my brother's place in Ocean City, Maryland. And it was pretty bad. It was bad enough that I definitely knew I had to get back on meds. So this time I did a little research and I found a psychiatrist in DC, where I was living. She was not covered by insurance. And I think back then, this was 18 years ago, it was $200 a visit. And I was just like, I'm willing to try it. You know, I think you can find a good psychiatrist, you know, sometimes that is under your insurance plan, but I wasn't having any luck and I was ready to try something different. And it was kind of funny because right away she said, you know, you definitely need to be on a different mood stabilizer. And she knew the previous psychiatrists, they, you know, both worked in DC. And she said to me, why didn't he take you off the Depakote and try something different? I was like, you tell me, like, I don't know. Yeah, I agree, but I was kind of like too ignorant and unknowledgeable to realize that I should speak up more and self-advocate. And, you know, I didn't really know that he should be taking me off of it. So she is the person who started me on lithium. All these other psychiatrists were just doing med checks, right? Like 15-minute med checks. And like I said, since I was doing so poorly, I don't think that was enough. Now, this doctor, she did not just do med checks. She was doing med checks and therapy. So I think my appointments were about 50 minutes each, so like almost an hour. I didn't know that I found the therapy with her that effective, but I found the medication extremely effective. So I started on lithium. I started doing well almost immediately on it. And really my life changed for the better. It wasn't perfect. I still was getting some more mild symptoms, but I wasn't going into full-blown mania. And I wasn't having depression much either, but you know, I went much more towards mania, or I still do. So I saw her for a little while, like less than a year, and she actually had some major health problems. And she was trying to still work, but she ended up having to leave the practice. There were some other psychiatrists in the group, and I just kind of got assigned to this new doctor. And that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of psychiatrists. Now, I'll give her a grade. I mean, what can I say? She really changed my life. The therapy wasn't great, but who cares, right? So I'll give her an A, maybe B plus A. So then I got to this other psychiatrist who is actually still my psychiatrist, who I got assigned to, and he's fantastic. He's like a superstar psychiatrist. And so I've been with him for about 18 years. So he kept me on the lithium. And then after several years, I kind of needed a little something more. I wasn't going into full-blown mania, but I was having hypomania quite a bit. I was starting to. And right away, he added Seroquel, which is, you know, an antipsychotic. If you don't know, I'm not saying these meds are right for everyone. They're definitely not. And some people may do extremely well on Depakote, and that's great, but we're all different. So he continued doing the longer appointments with me. So it's therapy and med checks, and I do them every month or two, depending on what I need, depending on how much stress is in my life. And the therapy with him is really a lot of planning, like planning for future events or future stress, things I know that are coming up, like trips or like a family event or just anything that could really bring out symptoms. So I've worked with him so much over the years. He has also really guided me with just medical decisions in general. He's ended up kind of doing medical care in other ways, like because I have hypothyroidism, he monitors my thyroid levels and my levothyroxine that I have to take. He just is like a wealth of knowledge about everything, like about medicine, about things outside of medicine. I feel like I can ask him almost any question about anything and he knows the answer, which this is not a requirement for a psychiatrist, but it's really useful. I can ask him questions about my daughter, my husband. You know, we've all been through a lot. You know, my husband had that spinal cord tumor surgery about a year ago. And he actually, Brian had the surgery at Johns Hopkins, and my psychiatrist, he's in DC and he's affiliated with Johns Hopkins. So he knew the surgeon. I mean, it's just been like a dream come true, basically. And what I went through with those previous psychiatrists, I feel like I kind of deserve to have this superstar psychiatrist now. He is not covered by insurance, just like, you know, the previous psychiatrist I had in his group. He started out kind of honoring the amount that I paid previously of $200, and it's very expensive. Because he is so sought after and such a good psychiatrist, the price has gone up. I won't say exactly how much, but if you really want to know, you can ask, you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook, but it's expensive. And I use my FSA to help pay for it. Flexible spending account, if you have one of those. So it's, you know, before tax. I don't want to give him up, but it's so expensive that I've definitely considered it. And every time I'm close to doing it, there's a reason not to. Like, you know, I started having some kidney dysfunction, and he was monitoring that, and then he referred me to a nephrologist, and we may have to change meds at some point or just lower the lithium to reduce that dysfunction and add other meds. And I just don't trust anyone else because of what I've been through. So the cost is the negative. Everything else is the positive. And I worry about the day that he might retire. He's about, I think, 10 years older than me. We do telehealth appointments. He will not start out doing telehealth. You have to see him in person, but if you're an established patient, you can then move out of the area and continue seeing him. I mean, despite the cost, I have to give him an A. I mean, maybe an A+. But so you can see the things that I value in psychiatrists, the things that I do not think are helpful. I think a psychiatrist should always be nimble and flexible, and you should be able to go to them and explain how you're feeling, and do not settle for lots of episodes, more episodes than stability. Now, every person is different. Every person has bipolar on a spectrum. That's what I believe. And we all respond to medication different. We all have this disorder to varying degrees. But I do think you need to always be thinking, like, could I be feeling better? Is this acceptable? Am I struggling way too much? Because if you feel that way, then I say you are. And you need to talk to your psychiatrist, and you're not getting anywhere, and they're not making those changes for you, at least trying different dosages, different meds, then move on. And try to get referrals, try to see reviews, you know, talk to people, all of that. I do think it's worthwhile, and you are worth it. You are worth good quality care. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.